Issues that matter to us. Experts who can expand our understanding. This is Left, Right and Center.
ਸਾਲ 2019 ਦੇ ਅੰਤਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਰੈਡ ਐਫਐਮ ਦਾ ਕਾਫਲਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਿਆ ਜੀ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਸਿਟੀ ਹਾਲ। ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਸਿਟੀ ਹਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜੀ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਹਿਸ ਵਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਨਾਹਿਦ ਨੈਂਸ਼ੀ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਲ 2019 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਲਏ ਗਏ ਫੈਸਲਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਉਲੀਕੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਯੋਜਨਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਗਤੀਵਿਧੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਰਚਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਸੋ ਆਓ ਜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। A very good morning, Mayor. Thank you for giving time to us.
Good morning to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. What a great opportunity to talk a little bit about the year we've had and what's coming up.
Yeah, and it's a good day to talk today because it's 31st Mayor's Food Drive today.
Yes, well, it's been going on.
Yeah.
So, one of the great things about this season is it's a real opportunity for giving. And so, in the last couple of days, I had the opportunity to walk through downtown Calgary with the Salvation Army as they are collecting for their annual Christmas drive. It was a very smart thing because we were singing Christmas carols. And I said, all right, if you put money in my kettle, I will stop singing.
Okay.
But also, as you say, it's the mayor's Christmas food drive.
Yes,
and, I've been doing that this is my 10th one, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
And it's a rough year for a lot of our neighbors. A lot of people are feeling a lot of pain right now. And it's important for those of us who are able to give just a little bit more this year. And I know that the Salvation Army and the Food Bank are seeing slightly slower years than they have in the past. So it's important for us all to come to the table. And as we South Asian people in the community know, it's just part of our lives, it's seva.
Yeah.
But this is a good opportunity to remind ourselves of the importance of that.
You just spoke about the year. So how did year 2019 fared for you?
Well, excuse me. In many ways, I think it was a tumultuous year. That's a good word. A lot of ups and a lot of downs. Fundamentally, I don't think that our economic recovery strengthened in the way I would have liked it to have strengthened in 2019. I think that we've had some setbacks in terms of political discourse.
Yeah.
I think city council's made a couple of mistakes, but ultimately, the good has outweighed the bad. And, I remember the day that I was sitting in a tent in Northeast Calgary in Cityscape, and we were inaugurating a new school for the Sikh community and a new Gurdwara. And I thought to myself, the optimism that we have in this city and the fact that people can come here from every corner of the world and be successful here is something we need to talk a lot more about.
Yeah.
Because I can go on all day about how our unemployment rates are better, our GDP is better, the economy is actually improving.
Yeah.
But unless you really feel that in terms of your own life, but also in terms of what's happening in the community, it's hard to be authentic. And so for me, the great thing about my life is I get to spend every evening and every weekend out in the community with people doing extraordinary things, like inaugurating that wonderful new place in Northeast Calgary. This stuff really matters.
Yes.
People who do miracles every day for one another in this community. And where Red FM is in West Winds in Northeast Calgary, if you look around that area, in fact, if you look around all of Northeast Calgary, you would be very hard pressed to find an empty retail storefronts.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs are doing it.
Yeah.
They're building businesses.
You're right.
And yet, when we talk about the state of business in our country, in our city, people are like, oh, there's empty storefronts, there's vacancy, people are going out of business. And I'm like, come to the Northeast and see how things are done. Because ultimately what we have to do is we have to support these people in their dreams. We have to support the local butcher shop and the local restaurant and the local clothing store and make sure that we are really helping them achieve successful businesses and wealth in our community, and that we got to get our heads better around that.
And this year, Alberta saw 2 elections.
Yes, there's been a lot of politics.
Yeah, provincial government was changed, though federals were able to retain power, though in minority. So how do you see those results means as a mayor of Calgary?
You know, I don't want to sound too flippant about it, but in the 9 years that I've been mayor, I can't believe it's been 9 years, but in the 9 years that I've been mayor, I have had 2 prime ministers, 6 premiers,
Wow.
and I think I'm on my 12th Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Okay.
And so we persevere. We grow. We still do great things.
Yes.
And our life is made so much easier when we have great partners at the provincial and federal level.
Yeah.
And right now, there's so much politics. There's so much political posturing. The province fighting with the feds fighting with the province trying to pick fights with the city. I don't think citizens care. You know, maybe we think they do, and maybe when we're in the media, we think the headline is so-and-so yelled at so-and-so or insulted such and such, but ultimately, citizens want us to deliver. They want us to build a better community. They want to help. They want us to grow the economy. They want us to make sure we're building a community of tolerance and acceptance where everyone can succeed. And that's my job. And so I don't ignore the politics because they're incredibly important.
Yes.
But I try to approach them all in a collaborative way. You know, I wear purple every day, right? And after all these years, people still ask me, is it because it looks good on you? Well, I hope it looks good on me. But the reason I wear purple every day is because it's a combination of red and blue.
Yes.
And so the idea is, it doesn't matter if you're a conservative or a liberal or a New Democrat. We all share this land. And it's our job to make the community better.
You're right. You just spoke about your job. Now we have 2 different political parties at federal and provincial level. How tough is it for Mayor of Calgary to run his local government in such a scenario?
Well, sometimes mommy and daddy are fighting, and you've got to figure out what you're going to do about that. But ultimately, that is why the purple matters, right? Because hopefully I can be a bridge between them and figure out ways to move better, because we work better when we collaborate. And in particular, the provincial government, you know, anyone who listens to Red FM knows that this provincial government, as they've been learning their jobs, as they've been new in their roles, have been very confrontational. And as I say, some of the ministers have a tendency to lash out instead of to reach out. And I think they will soon learn that citizens don't want that. That citizens want us to work together. And certainly that's why my hand is out in terms of thinking about how we can build the community better together.
As you just said, you have been at loggerheads with the Minister of Municipal Affairs as well as with the Justice Minister also. Justice Minister, you know, he called you as Trudeau's mayor. You have also not minced any words in replying to them.
Oh, I minced so many words. And this is me biting my tongue.
So do you think that this battle of barbs will help Calgary
No,
anyway?
Of course not. It's ridiculous. And so, you know, these folks come out and say ridiculous things, and of course they have a record they're trying to distract themselves from, right? You know, you named a couple of ministers, neither of whom can probably point to a single thing they've done successfully since they've been in their jobs, which is fair. They're new at it. None of them have been ministers before. But, you know, if their instinct is, let's pick a fight, well, don't pick a fight with Calgary, because Calgary needs to succeed. And I think they'll learn that.
Okay. And we have also heard that there used to be meetings between elected representatives of provincial government and federal government, along with the elected representatives of local government. Have there any such meeting this year?
Yeah. You know, I've had the time to sit down with the Premier. I've had the time to sit down with many of the ministers on files that are important. I've never met the Minister of Justice, though, by the way, which I find odd. I mean, I know him from before, but I've never met him since he's been the minister, which I find weird because he loves to talk about me all day. But I think that we have to formalize, and what you're referring to is we used to have a round table with the mayor of Edmonton, the mayor of Calgary, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and the Premier. And we probably need to do that again. And we haven't done that yet in the term of this new government.
Spending and revenue, these 2 words, they have been resounding from City Hall all of this year. Where do you think the imbalance lies in these?
So the city has been very responsible in its budgeting for many years, because as I always say, I'm an Indian kid from Northeast Calgary. I hate wasting money. And So we have actually removed, since the economic downturn, we've removed nearly $700 million from a $4 billion budget. And we'll continue to find those efficiencies, but we have to do so in a way that keeps the services people need. So to give you an example, this year, or late last year and the beginning of this year, we launched our MAX bus rapid transit lines. And the idea there was to allow people from Northeast Calgary, students especially, but also medical workers, to be able to get to Foothills Hospital and the University of Calgary and the Children's Hospital without going downtown. And this has been hugely successful. And so now, as we have more and more people living in neighborhoods like Redstone and Skyview, how can we extend the Max Orange to help those people as well? Because we have very high transit usage in Northeast Calgary. We need better service. The reason I highlight that is because it can't just be cut. We actually have to be able to invest in the things that will bring jobs and will bring people's lives. And I think the city's done a nice balance of that. We have, however, had one very big problem. And that is that the job losses in the economic downturn, and it's very unique. It's never happened like this in Calgary before. And I don't know of other cities where this has happened. The job losses have been very concentrated in the downtown core. So as you and I know, West Wind's booming. Right? You can never get a parking spot, right? But in the downtown core, we've lost tons of jobs. And so as a result, the assessment in the downtown has gone through the floor. And because every business pays the same rate, the businesses outside of the downtown, whose assessment has stayed the same or has gone up a little bit, have seen huge increases in their taxes. And this isn't fair, and it makes it very hard for the small businesses to succeed. So we've been trying very hard to help those businesses as best we can. In fact, the city has spent $200 million in rebates to business to try and buffer them from this hurt. By the way, in that same period of time, while the city spent $200 million, the province spent $0. They just collect their property tax. But we can't do that forever. I'm running out of savings. So one of the things we did this year is we kept our budget flat with a 0% increase, other than some provincial government stuff, but a 0% increase. But what we did was we then said, but you know what? We're going to increase the householder's tax and reduce the business tax by the same amount. So your average home is going to see an increase of about $12 a month next year. But that money goes directly to giving the businesses lower taxes. And because there's much fewer businesses, they will see a much bigger decrease than $12 a month. And it's one way that we said, you know what, let's share the pain and let's try and keep these businesses surviving and functional. And that will help a lot with the problem. It will not solve the problem. Ultimately, the only solution to the problem is we need more jobs in the downtown core. And we've got to keep working on that.
There's a general conception among laymen that corporate houses, builders, and other influential people, they succeed in molding the decisions at City Hall in their favor, while the interests of common people are overlooked. What's your take?
I think that there is some truth to that statement. I think that it has been very, very different in the last 9 years, because certainly that's not the world that I come from. I think we did see a little bit of that in the last 12 months. And I think it's important for all of us on council, and I know that Councillors Chahal and Gondek are often talking to the community on the station about this stuff. But I think that it's important for all of us to recognize that we try to do what's best for the whole city. And sometimes that does mean doing things that are great for business, because those businesses are employing the homeowners. But ultimately, we also have to be thoughtful about how the city is growing and making sure that we're not adding additional cost. And that's really where the issue around the tension between the land developers and citizens and city council can find itself. I do believe that when we approved 14 new communities last year, that was too much. And I think it will end up saddling us with additional cost. But I also believe that we're building great new communities. So, just this last week, we approved the finishing of the community of Cityscape, as well as a new community on the other side of 60th Street from there. And I think those kinds of things where there is demand, where we're being thoughtful about building communities, where there are also jobs, where there are also services, where there is also retail, is what we need to be much smarter about.
You have spoken so much about Northeast of Calgary. Majority of residents in Northeast, they do believe that the city adopts double standards when it comes to policy making about them. You can talk about insurance rates. It's more in Northeast
That's
Calgary.
not us, but yes.
Yes. So people feel that their interests are being ignored.
And I think that is something that for a long time was real. We weren't investing in community infrastructure in the Northeast as much as in other parts of the city. I've worked hard to change that. The Genesis Center is a great example. We had to build 5 new rec centers, but the Genesis Center was the first one.
Yes.
Because we needed in the Northeast Calgary. The biggest money we've spent on renovations of regional parks in the last several years has been on improvements to Prairie Winds Park. And now we need another rec center further north than the Genesis Center, but we've just approved artificial turf for the soccer fields at Genesis. So these are the sorts of things we need to do in order to really make up for, I think, what is fairly a bunch of decline. I think things are way better than they've been. And, you look at a neighborhood like Cityscape, to pick one. That is a fantastic neighborhood. And when we look at new, and then many of them are fantastic, but when we look at new investment in new neighborhoods in the community, that's the kind of thing we need to do. When we look at the expansion of Métis Trail, when we look at the Max Arrow bus, or the Max Orange rather, bus route, when we look at the new bus route up 68th Street Northeast, bringing people down into the industrial areas where many people in the Northeast work, these are all the kinds of investments that I will admit were overdue, but are really making a difference now. And I hope that will continue to happen. And by the way, one thing I'm super happy about is not only did we finally finish the widening of Métis Trail, because that was a ridiculous bottleneck, but the biggest road project in the whole city right now is finally completing Airport Trail. When I first became mayor 9 years ago, that was the very first thing that we focused on, was building the airport tunnel. And a lot of people said, you're crazy. Where's that going? And now you look at billions and billions of dollars in investment on the east side of that tunnel, and now we can finally finish it so that Airport Trail will be an uninterrupted east-west route from Stony Trail through the airport, through Deerfoot, all the way to Centre Street, Harvest Hills Boulevard. And certainly that will also be great for the families that have some family on one side of Deerfoot and some on the other side of Deerfoot. So these are the kinds of investments we need to keep making.
So while deducting $60 million from the budgets of various departments during the mid-year, councillors didn't even touch their salaries and benefits. How do you justify this?
Well, listen, I cut mine. I'm the only one who's taken a budget cut, but I actually really strongly believe, and council has frozen their salary for many years now, but I actually strongly believe that we shouldn't. I don't think politicians should mess with their own salaries. We have a group of citizen volunteers who convene every 3 years, and their job is to set our salary. And I don't think politics should form any role of that. We should let the citizen volunteers make that decision. And so I've always accepted the committee's recommendations.
So do you believe that City of Calgary has lagged behind in communicating with the Calgarians properly this year?
I think it's tough because there's so much noise. There's so many people just yelling and being angry all the time, and it's hard to get the facts in front of people, and we've tried hard. And in fact, one of the interesting things that we've done is, for the first time, we actually have a different language policy for our communications. We've never had that before. So if you saw communications in Punjabi or Tagalog or French, that was ad hoc. Now we have a policy that we have to try and reach out to people in the languages they speak. But it's hard, right? Anyone who listens to this station all day will just hear lots of angry people talking about angry things. And sometimes it's tough to get that message out. And it's just something I got to continue to do. And, my own goal for 2020 is to be relentlessly positive, to talk about the great things that are happening in the city and how we can focus on those instead of focusing on the anger and the negativity.
The recent citizen satisfaction survey, people generally have admitted that Calgary is a great place to live.
But it's going down a little bit.
Yes, it's going down. People have shown concern about roads, about traffic, about infrastructure, about safety. How you are going to address those concerns?
Well, so the problem is that if you keep telling people how bad things are for political gain, they're going to start to believe you. And so we've got to be responsible about that.
Okay.
I'm going to pick on one thing in your question because we haven't talked about it yet, which is safety.
Yes.
This is something we have to be very concerned about. We are seeing Calgary still remains extraordinarily safe by any world standard, safer than it was when I was growing up as a kid. But you have to be very careful about trends. And I'm very concerned about the increase in violence, particularly in Northeast Calgary, which has always been one of the safest parts of the city, despite what others say. This actually bothers me a lot, and I'm really pleased with Councillor Chahal's leadership in bringing together a community forum on violence and on gangs. We got to keep our kids safe, and there's nothing more important than that. And we've got to make sure that we're cracking down on this kind of gang activity, which I know are people from other parts of the country and of the world coming in and recruiting here in Calgary. We've got to really have a focus on addiction and drugs and mental health, because ultimately this city only works because it's safe for everyone. And in the last year, I'm starting to get concerned that we're not fulfilling that promise in every part of the city.
And what new initiatives would you like to mention over here that you would be bringing up next year for the benefit of Calgarians?
So let's just continue the conversation we were just having on safety. I'd like to see a better community action plan, especially in Northeast Calgary, around crime and safety with our new police chief involved, but also community organizations involved. Beyond that, I'm going to be very much focused on economic growth, on bringing investment into Calgary. Your listeners will be interested to know that I plan on doing my very first ever trade mission to India.
Wow, that's great.
So here's the funny thing. I shouldn't say this on Red FM. I've never been to India.
Oh, wow.
Right? But we think that there's some real opportunity to have better bilateral trade ties. So we'll be really focused on bringing in business from around the world, but that's one area that we'll be thinking hard about, both in terms of tech business and also in terms of the creative industries. We have an amazing film industry in Calgary, and I want the billion people who love Bollywood films to be exposed to what we do here. So there's a lot of that going on. And then we've got some very tough decisions to make on some really specific items. So we're going to have to make some really critical decisions on the Green Line very quickly and make sure that the Green Line is serving the North and the South. Very early in 2020. That's a $4.9 billion project. We've got to make sure that we're protecting small business in Calgary, encouraging people to buy local. And we've got to make sure that our budget remains as well-formed as it has been, and that we don't overreact, but that we are also focused on delivering services as best we can in an efficient way.
So in closing, what would be your message to our listeners and viewers?
You know what? This year, The Economist called us again the very best city in the entire Western Hemisphere in which to live. That's pretty special. We're not a big city by global standards. We're in the middle of the sometimes frozen Canadian prairie. But we've accomplished something incredible here. That people can come here and live out their dreams and live out their dreams for their kids and their grandkids and generations to come. So for 2020, as we start this new decade, I can't believe it's a new decade, but as we start this new decade, let's focus on what makes this place work. Let's focus on Seva. Let's focus on what we can do to make life better for our neighbors. And ultimately, we are a place that will not only survive, we are a place that will thrive.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really great talking to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year and all the very best to everyone for 2020.
Thank you very much, sir. Same to you. So, ਇਸ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਹਿਜ਼ ਵਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਨਾਹਿਦ ਨੈਂਸ਼ੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਯੋਜਨਾਵਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਵਿਰਾਮ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ ਜੀ। ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।